Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of NasCard Radio. This is episode number 25, and I'm your pal Val with the amazing Jason. Jason, how are you today, sir?
Hey, Val, doing good.
That's great to hear. I'm super excited today. I'm going to talk about a couple different things. We might be all over the road, but talk about maybe some getting autographs through the mail and in person, and the races at Indy, all the other stuff. There was Chronicles was on Panini's site for soccer, and we'll talk about that. But first, we have a guest for the show today, Ken. Ken, how are you, sir?
I am fantastic. I'm thrilled to be on here, man. We've been trying for a while to make this happen. Glad we finally got it.
Yeah, we've been, conversing back and forth for years, through Twitter. You're the Beans Card blog, at Beans Card blog on Twitter. I know you do a little bit of racing as well, and I've been trying to hook you to get into NASCAR again.
I tell you, I really enjoyed this past weekend of the dual IndyCar NASCAR thing, since I'm an IndyCar guy. So who knows, man? Maybe if we can get some more of that. Yeah,
that's been that was really good. I had been to Indy, the Indy 500 one time years ago, and I was glad to see. Actually, I thought the Indy 500 was running this last weekend, but they had open wheel race as well. But then we had the Xfinity race one day and the Cup race, and then when I watched the Xfinity, they were running the road course, and then the Cup race, they were running the regular. So that was really cool to see, and, it'd be even better if they, maybe made it a 3-day weekend or something, or like they had done with Xfinity and the open wheel, have a dual race. So that was really awesome.
Yeah, I think maybe, COVID's changed things. I mean, I know that, I'm not the biggest NASCAR fan, NASCAR guy anymore. I used to be super into it. But, yeah, the way everything's shortening up and they're running midweek races, everything's tightening up for 1 and 2, one-day shows. And, this probably got made into a 2-day show where, on a normal, in normal times, it could have been a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. So, again, hopefully we can see that in the years to come.
Yeah, I think NASCAR is doing a really good job with, getting a show out there for everybody with no baseball, no football, no basketball, anything like that. NASCAR is one of those things where you can have some of that social distancing. Even with Jimmy Johnson testing positive for COVID and missing the race, he was basically, because they're keeping the drivers and the crews separate, that they were able to pretty much, have a substitute driver, and it didn't really affect the whole team. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, they've done that. You haven't, other than that situation, I don't recall hearing about any other situation. So, NASCAR was the first group to get back out there, and it seems like they've done well. And, of course, not being a stick and ball contact sport, they're able to actually achieve that and, a little bit easier than some of these other sports, perhaps can do.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Not that I wish any ill will on the other sports, because I'm all for basketball and baseball. But to your point, you have that basically, a basketball team, they're going to have to be in a bubble. You're going to have to play another team, they're going to be in a bubble. And, when you mix the two, and it's a contact sport, and I'm hoping they can pull that off some way. So,
yeah,
the race.
It's a number of races. I saw that, I guess today it was announced by the Big Ten that they're not going to play any out-of-conference football this year. So that stuff is starting to roll down. But, again, NASCAR, while they've made adjustments, are still looking like you're going to get pretty much a full slate of races in. So, what they're doing is working, no doubt.
Yeah, and they've been stacking them, Wednesday races and Thursday races and Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, when they started with Darlington, with those back-to-back. So if you're a fan of racing, you're getting your fill right now. So it's been great. I've been enjoying it. Probably almost too much racing, but it's been fun to watch. And, of course, I'm clamoring for Chronicles to come out. Dunruss came out in February, so we haven't had anything. They limited us again this year. I think it was 4 products. So, we should have already had another. We should have already had another product. Usually Victory Lane comes out at this time already. So we're getting Chronicles. And I don't know if you guys saw, but Chronicles Soccer was released earlier in the week. I saw that it came on. I saw somebody had a thing on Twitter, and they said it was out. And, of course, it was like 20 minutes old. I went and looked. It was already sold out at $220 a box.
It seems great. Like Chronicles is getting expanded because typically it was baseball and basketball. I don't think it was football yet because some of the brands in the baseball and basketball Chronicles had standalone releases for football. So maybe this year NFL will get Chronicles, but if with Panini doing Soccer Chronicles, NASCAR Chronicles, and then also tomorrow releases the Collegiate Football Chronicles, it seems like they're expanding Chronicles across the board. But, we talked about it in last time, and then we, brought up the price point of $120 for a few hits, 4 hits a box. So it's definitely at that price point where they're trying it out, and it really surprised me that Soccer was over $200 and it sold out as fast as it did. So I'm kind of wondering if it's demand or if it's supply or both, or if it's just this whole COVID thing where everything's just going a little crazy.
Yeah, that's what
I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry. That's what I was going to ask real quick. You guys know that I really, NASCAR-wise, only really collect one thing, and I know you said there's only been one 2020 release, but is NASCAR seeing the spike that, baseball, basketball, football are seeing, or is it kind of staying more in line like apparently hockey is?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to happen August 7th if they have it on the website and how it sells for NASCAR. What I could tell for soccer was that there's, I think, a hot rookie, Mason Greenwood, I think that's his name. And I also noticed that they have a Dunruss brand inside of that Chronicles that look good, as well as these other ones. So I don't know if everybody's chasing him, but I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. I know that old wax for NASCAR has been increasing, or the big three have increased their prices. Now the blaster boxes are in the $10 to $15 range now, where before they were sometimes special at $5. So, but there's so much has dried up. 2016 certified hobby boxes have dried up. You don't see any 2016 Prism boxes anymore. 2017 Absolute, I think, is at almost like $80 a box. So I'm really curious to see how Chronicles is. At that 120, I think that's actually maybe low, if that soccer was 220. So we'll see.
Yeah, it just could be a situation where people are it seems like people are buying anything they can get their dang hands on as far as unopened. I mean, I sold some unopened basketball at the Dallas Card Show recently that I retail that I picked up, and I made a substantial amount of money on that. I bought the Bowman Sapphire baseball that came out a couple of weeks ago, and I heard somebody say last night, the guys on About the Cards say that those boxes are going for almost $500 now on the secondary market. So as it is, even guys that aren't interested in NASCAR may be picking it up thinking, oh, well, everything else is going up. Why not do this?
And I've seen a spike in silvers on Checking My Cards. So there are definitely some people coming in to the NASCAR market, and I've had a couple of DMs, asking about investing, and I try to shy away from that just because we never know who's going to go up or what's going to happen. So, but I think the NASCAR guys are still cheap, and if you go with guys like Harvick and if you're looking for established guys, or if you're even looking for the Cup rookies, they're still priced pretty decent. You always want to comparison shop if you can. So, but I think there's a lot of folks coming into NASCAR, and I don't know if it's because NASCAR is the only sport running. If there's no new products in NASCAR, or we have other people coming in that because everybody's buying everything up. If you go to Walmart, if it's like mine, I think I have Pokemon, and that's about it.
Maybe it's, and I'll just throw another thing out there, part of, we know COVID's part of the boom and all of that, but, I'm of that age. Jason and I are about the same age, and I think, Val, you're just a couple of years older than I am, where, we're established as adults with jobs and, have some expendable income, and some of those guys that went to NASCAR in the 90s, like I was, mid-90s to early 2000s, that maybe got away from it. Maybe it's just what's happening everywhere else. Those guys are coming back, they're getting interested, and they're putting out some money.
That's possible, too. It's always fun. It's interesting. Well, everything is so hot. I was going to say, even supplies are hot. I don't know if you guys have seen the prices of supplies lately, but Card Saver One.
When I was saying I was at the Dallas Card Show a few weeks ago, and I saw two different dealers that had the 25 packs of top loaders for $10. Now,
holy.
Again, I also saw some guys that had them for $3. So, you take it for what it's worth. But I mean, we're all on Twitter, and I see it on there a lot of, I can't find them, blah blah blah. Anybody out there got any? My local card shop actually still has them. The 35 points, 2 for 3 fit, or 2 for, good grief, 4 for 10. But yeah, they're limiting them though. They're only letting you get 4.
Yeah, I've been paying attention to the Card Saver Ones because I do some grading of stuff. But then that's the way I like to store my cards. And so before the COVID, or right when the COVID hit, I picked up a case, and I think it was about $180. Let's just say it was $180. Then the cards and everything, all the supply market got absorbed, and then Cardboard Gold had another case or something. They were telling you that stuff wasn't coming until the end of June, and I think it went to $280, and now they're sold out at $380.
Yeah, I can still find card savers, again, at my local LCS. But, yeah, I mean, probably what it is, I mean, they're already in demand because of grading. Like you said, you like to store yours, and that's actually how I store my personal cards is in card savers. But as the top loader supply has dwindled, people they're gonna take, if they wouldn't normally take them, they're going to take what they can get at this point.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this.
Bizarro world.
It's crazy, and I know we could go off on this all day, but it's like a mixture of things that happened all at the same time, because we had COVID, we had pop stars like Zion coming out, and then I've had numerous people come to me that I played softball with or went to high school with or whatever that watched The Last Dance. And they're like, oh, I went back, I got all my cards, now I'm buying this. And I have a friend that 2 months ago wasn't buying cards, and now he's buying like $1,000 Trout rookie cards. You know what I mean? Like, there's people coming back that are in full force looking at it as stocks. And I was not old enough to grasp what happened in the 90s, but I do have that fear that, there is some sort of bubble on something. Not everything per se, but something's going to pop, and, hopefully, we're not all left with all these Topps cards or whatever that's, nothing. But, and even going back to what Ken said, 10 minutes ago, we are of that age where I'm just turned 38, and 90 Topps, it's that thing of it's 30 years old, and it's like that prime, like I'm going to go back and buy that. People my age, like he said, have that expendable income, and stuff that wasn't valuable 10 years ago now is that ripe age of 30, and people want it. So there's just all kinds of things that are combining and mixing, and it's like that perfect storm.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know if you want to talk about it. We were, with Indy, it made me think of there are some Indy card sets. I know there's some earlier sets, I think the T36 and Perkhurst and some other ones. I haven't really collected any of those. I really didn't get into any Indy until I was looking through the Beckett, and the 1980 Avalon Hill Sports Illustrated Auto Racing board game. I don't know if you're familiar. I think I might have sent you a picture of that one. That has Tim Richmond in it. And what the Avalon Hill is a board game and with some dice and some cards, and you go around the track, and they have basically the starting lineup for the Indy 500, and I think they started maybe in 79 and go to the middle in the 80s or whatever. But in the Tim Richmond was in the 1980 Indy 500. I think it was Rookie of the Year as well. But that's how I kind of.
Yeah, I think it was. He was going to do it. From what I understand, I don't remember if it was something I read or something I saw, because there was that ESPN. I think there was an ESPN documentary on him a few years ago. Yeah, I think he was more interested in open wheel, but I believe one of the races, his mom saw a wreck or something, and was like, we're not funding you for this. So they wanted him to go to stock cars, thinking they were more safe. We can debate that. We can debate that 100 ways, but obviously the appearance of the cars would confirm what, she thought. So, yeah, he did run. I believe he ran twice in the 500 before he moved over to NASCAR.
He's was an interesting guy. He has a book, had a book written about him. I had read that, and I think I watched that 30 for 30. And quickly, I think it was his dad had invented something for either excavating or pipes or something like that. So, and that pretty much anything Tim got into, he was almost a master of. He learned how to fly and cars, and he knew either the inventor or whoever owned the Uno game, and Uno sponsored him. And you're correct. The story is that there was an accident, and basically his mom told his dad that he needed to get out of that car or she was divorcing him. And so they went to NASCAR, and he's also included in the 1983 Uno set for NASCAR cars. He's got numerous cars. I think 7 or 8 in that 30-card set. Him and Buddy Baker ran Uno, but yeah, so that Avalon Hill, they're big cards, and I was able to pick some up. So those are pretty sweet, a sweet little set. And I think they started, I don't know, was it 82 or 83 that CDA PPG set? Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I think it was maybe 81 through 83, I believe. I believe there were 3 sets, and maybe there were more. Yeah, I know I have 2 of them, and we were talking about autographs, and I know there was one gentleman that I sent through the mail autograph request to with 2 of them, and he's like, hey, he wrote me back, and he's like, I'm also in a 3rd set, so if you can find that card, I'll sign it. unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that happen before he passed away. But, yeah, so I am definitely familiar with those. I do have a few of those guys from those sets signed.
Yeah, I only bring it up not to put you on the spot for the details of them, but just to let our listeners know that, there are some sets out there, and if they're not familiar with them, because, like I said, I just kind of stumbled on them. And Mario Andretti, he signs through the mail, or I have to double check if he still does it, but he says it's going to take a year, and I sent some off, and it took about a year for me to get them back. But I thought that was really cool. I love the through the mail to these guys. And to your point, sometimes I include extra cards, and I tell them, hey, if you want extra card for yourself, please, take it. And Ralph, I think it was Ralph Liguori from the Winner's Circle. I sent him some, and he kept some. He had never seen them, so. But it's always fun. And then the only other,
I'm getting Mario Andretti back. I'm still waiting. It's been 5 years. I still haven't gotten mine back.
From who? From
Mario. I think it's gone.
Oh no.
It happens. It was a basic card. I've got plenty of Mario Andretti autographs. I'm good.
Yeah. Now the only other set that I know of is because of Tony Stewart is it the '97 high tech set? It comes with a little Viper or whatever I think it is.
Yeah, there was it 90? I know there was a high tech 500 set in like 95. I don't remember. You may know of one I don't, because I don't recall one where Tony Stewart was in it. There were also a couple of late 80s sets as well by All World. Or I'm sorry, early 90s by All World. There's like 91, 92, and maybe 93. And then the last of a mainstream, like, normal set. And pretty much all those old ones were issued in like just box set form, like the old, Topps traded sets or the sets you would get at like KB Toys. And then in 2007, Rittenhouse did one set, and that was the last time that IndyCar has had any like officially licensed cards produced.
Now I like that Rittenhouse. Of course, I have not purchased any of that. I missed. Somebody had an archival box. Is that correct? Or is that a different brand? Now? An archival box where it's got like every autograph in it.
You know what? Now that you say that, I didn't think that existed. I don't recall seeing. I know that I did see like a case of them on one of the big three, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I almost bought it. And I said, you know what? I'll wait and see if it gets marked down. Well, either got marked down or somebody just snagged it at that price, so I missed out. But yeah, I don't think you can find that. Every once in a while, you maybe see a box pop up on eBay, but the prices are ridiculous because Danica Patrick has an autograph in there.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. The other ones that I've seen are, I guess at the Indy 500, they have a uncut sheet. I think in the program there's a coupon to redeem for an uncut sheet. And I think I don't remember her first year, if it was 06 maybe?
5.
Yeah, maybe it was 05. And I've got one. I actually got her to sign it, which was awesome.
Oh, that was big.
She was at the Hall of Fame, and I brought my daughter with me for like a Q&A, so that was really cool. But so there are Indy sets, and that is the 97 high tech, and it's not really a close up of Tony. It's just him and his car on the track with the Quaker State car with the Gildan car. So.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I think Menards was on that car too.
Very good. Yes.
Yeah. Definitely sounds right. And then we were talking, I know Press Pass, I want to say maybe 2012, did the Legends set, and they had a couple of the IndyCar guys in it. They had the, obviously, if you look at who they are, they were the Penske drivers and the Ganassi drivers, but those were the teams that were also in NASCAR. So you've got Will Power, who is still racing. You had Helio Castroneves and Juan Montoya. And then on the Ganassi side, you had Franchitti and Dixon in there. But that's been the last thing that, was any IndyCar-related releases that I know of, at least. I'm sure there's always possible there's something else, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up. There's not a lot of good information, I think, on some of that stuff, and that's why I've started the podcast and the blog for the NASCAR stuff, because with the press pass going out of business or getting out of the trading card business, all their information, their site was gone, and trading card database has some information on sets or checklists, but not really product information. So,
and that's why I come to you anytime I have NASCAR card questions.
Well, I appreciate it. And I was going to say, I know we talked a little bit before we got on the air, but I did go to an Indy race, and I think we talked about it was like 2011. And the reason I had gone, and Logan, King NASCAR, we met there, and they had a memorabilia show, and I was told that I had read an article that Andy Granatelli of STP fame went every year. And he was, they called him Mr. 500. There was a book. He, as an owner, he won the Indy 500. I think it was in '68 with Mario Andretti. And I wanted to talk to him about the 1972 STP NASCAR set. So I took a trek out there. We went to the race, and there was a state fairgrounds in Indy, and it turns out it was like the second longest running memorabilia card show behind the National. So that intrigued me. But that year was the first year that they also did a show at the track. Andy Granatelli ended up going to the show at the track and not to the fairgrounds. So I was banking on him going to fairgrounds. So, but also Joe Leonard was at the fairgrounds, and he did a signing. I did a little pit stop on the 1970 Lear drag strips, and that's how I got those Joe Leonard's autographed at that show. But
now, didn't he run NASCAR races as well, Leonard?
I have to check. I'm not sure.
I thought he did. I thought I'd heard Donald Davidson. He's the Indy Speedway historian, and he does radio shows during May and stuff. And you just call in, you ask him something, he tells you stories. And I feel like when he talked about Joe Leonard, he said that he did. I know he was a motorcycle racer too. He was a champion motorcycle racer before he got into four wheels.
Well, I know.
Sorry, off the topic.
No. Perfect site to racing reference, and he ran one Cup Series race.
Yep, I was looking at it on Wikipedia.
1969 Medal of Honor Firecracker 400, July 4th, 1969.
Finished 31st after starting 12th.
Yeah,
anyway, I thought I heard him talk about that before, so I assumed that was why you asked the autograph was because he had raced in a NASCAR race.
Well, I didn't know that one, but I had the Lear drag strips with me, and I'm always, when the right opportunity happens, part of being prepared, and I thought they would be pretty cool to get autographed. I'm one of these guys where I think the autograph is a value added to the card. Not that I'm selling it, but if I ever wanted to or whatever, and I think, the drivers held the card, they've autographed it as opposed to, and especially some of the harder stuff, I try to get the 72 STP set autographed because I figure, well, I can probably find more STP cards. It's harder to find autographed STP cards. So, if that makes sense.
Well, and if you decide to sell that, I probably have somewhere between 60 and 75 IndyCar guys that have been in the Indy 500 autographs. So if you ever decide to move that, I'm your Huckleberry. I don't have a Joe Leonard autograph.
Gotcha. Now, do you do So let's see the show. So it was, the 500 was interesting, and a real funny story. Me and Logan were walking, and I think it was the day before, and we're going past the Pagoda, and we're going down a pit road, and then we made some turns, and all of a sudden we're on the track, and all the drivers are right there, like doing some kind of ceremony or whatever it is, and then it's over, and then they all start coming towards us. I was able to get like Al Unser's autograph, and then I did see Andy Granatelli, and he motioned, for me to go over there or whatever, over to the side to get an autograph and talk to him. But it was Al Unser and a couple other drivers, but I was like, well, I'll just see him tomorrow, which turned out never to. So I missed the opportunity, but it was kind of funny. Me and Logan didn't know where we were going, and just kind of wound up. Of course, Danica was there too, but I don't know if I told this story before, but she just kind of disappeared. And I was talking to some other folks that were getting autographs, and like, oh yeah, what she does is put her hair up under her hat and walks by. You don't even recognize her, head down. So she just
when they're at Indy, they're masters. I was in the garage, and Mario Andretti was signing autographs, and obviously, I mean, it's Mario freaking Andretti. Everybody wants his autograph, and all of a sudden there was just a clap of thunder, and boy, did he snuck back in there. He tried to sneak back in the garage while everybody looked up. They are. I mean, you don't think about, now granted, this is Mario Andretti, this is Danica, but even the guys that, when they come to Texas up here, people don't really know who they are. But, man, when they're at Indianapolis and it's May, I mean, everybody at the track knows who they are. They can be a little under the radar pretty much anywhere else, but, yeah, not at Indy and, not on the track or in the garage area. Pretty much everybody knows who they are.
Yeah, I was working on that 85 Sports Star photographic stickers. That's some of the Indy drivers are in there, and so that's I was able to knock out the Indy drivers from that set. So it was pretty cool. But so do you do a lot of through the mail, or how do you get your autographs?
Well, so a lot of mine, so I'm not even 100% sure you knew this, Val. Obviously, Jason knows, but I lived in Indianapolis for about a decade. I was there, I think, 7 or 8 years. So I've been to 500. And then around town, they'll do signings, in the couple weeks before. They one year when Izod was the sponsor, so they did the big signing of the field at one of the, I don't remember what store it was, but it was somebody that carried Izod apparel. I don't know if it was JCPenney or who it was. So I've done that a couple of times, things like that. And then there, the guys that raced, the Ganassi guys that had the Target on the car at the time, so Franchitti and Dixon would sign at various Targets and things like that. And then here, now I live in Arlington, Texas, and Texas Motor Speedway is about 45 minutes to an hour. And then they'll do the IndyCar usually does like about an hour signing at each of the tracks. So you got to go and you got to wait. You got to be there like an hour early. But they'll do signings, so able to get a few of them that way. And then I have a few of the older gentlemen I have gotten through the mail. Paul Goldsmith. He's the oldest living Indy 500 driver. He's 93, I believe. And last I know, as of a couple of years ago, still flies airplanes. But got him through the mail, and he sent me, like, in addition to, like, the 7 cards I sent him, because he actually was born in West Virginia where I grew up, he sent me back, like, 7 additional autographs. So, yeah, I got, like, 15 autographs or something from him. Johnny Rutherford, guys like that I've gotten through the mail. Some haven't been successful, but most of mine have been in person, and then a few through the mail. I mentioned the one, Bill Alsop, he had signed those 2 for me and sent me that note and said, hey, I've got a third one if you want to find it and send it to me, I'll sign it. And unfortunately, it was just a matter of weeks after I got that autograph request back. He was out working on his property on a bulldozer, and it turned over on him, and he lost his life. Yeah, very, very, very sad. With the older drivers, what it comes down to is a lot of them, because I'm the guys that, care about the guys that ran the Indy 500, they kind of just go into, I don't want to say they go into hiding, but they're just not that easy to find, is where I have gotten through the mail of a lot of the older NASCAR drivers, and I say older, meaning retired. I've gotten Mark Martin through the mail, Bill Elliott, Dale Jarrett, Ned Jarrett. Obviously, pretty much anybody that does CTMs has gotten Richard Petty. A lot of those guys. They seem to be a little bit easier to find. So I've definitely had more success actually finding, the NASCAR guys that, were driving when I was growing up.
Yeah, if you're a NASCAR fan and you have not sent a card to Richard Petty, you are doing yourself a disservice.
Absolutely. And I have a lot more I want to send to him, but there's just that whole thing of, granted it hasn't been in about 5 years, so I probably am okay to send another one, but there's that whole thing of not wanting to be greedy, because I'm not trying to sell them, but, just trying to draw that fine line of I really do appreciate them and, will preserve them for future generations, because Richard Petty will always be Richard Petty.
Yeah, so if you send anything more than 2, you will get them back. I had sent 3 because I usually, like I said, oh, please, keep one for yourself kind of a thing, and they either didn't read it or whatever. So I got the 2 back and a little piece of paper that says, only allowed 2 a year. So if you're not sending them in, because he has one of the greatest autographs you'll ever see, and, it's only a price of a stamp. So you can look up Richard Petty Motorsports, and there's an autograph request section, and you just follow that.
Yeah, there was I don't remember what the set was. It was around 2000. It was an insert set. It was a press pass insert set of some sort, but they kind of looked like the size of like the 1950 Bowman cards or something. They're a little smaller.
The snapshots.
Do what now?
Snapshots.
Maybe that's what it was. But I know that I was wanting to try to get a lot of those guys to sign those, so those are what I have, and he signed them in. He signed both of them in silver ink, and it's just an absolutely gorgeous signature, gorgeous card. Everything about it is fantastic.
Yeah, he. If you've seen him do autograph signing in person, since I live close to Charlotte, the teams will do a fan day before all this, and you could go, and I think they limit it to, I don't know if it's 200 folks, whatever. But when you bring your item, he's got his arsenal of pens. He knows exactly what color, when it should be silver, when it should be black, when it should be white. So me and Logan figured up how many hours he probably has spent signing, and I think it was into the weeks of his life signing stuff.
Yeah, some of those gentlemen, again, kind of going back to some of the other names I mentioned. I mean, Richard Petty is on the Mount Rushmore, and maybe the Bill Elliott's and the Dale Jarrett's and the Ned Jarrett's aren't, but they're, if he's 1A, they're on that 1B level, and they just all seem to be such great ambassadors, and, it might be one of the last generations. I don't know, because I'm not into the current as much, but man, they know who helped pay the bills. They know who supported them, and they give back. And it's awesome to see.
Yeah, there's, I think north of Charlotte, around Christmas time, there's a Stocks per Tots charity, and the drivers will volunteer and go there. And to your point, the older drivers are there. Some of the younger guys are there as well. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is another one who will go, depending on his schedule. So they definitely give back and understand. As also, I think there's been other ones where they've been having charity events for the older drivers who didn't make all this money, like some of the newer guys, whatever, to help support them. Years ago, they did some of that. So, and then one other thing on Richard Petty real quick is that if you buy anything from his gift shop, he'll sign it for free. So, and then that's unlimited. So whatever you want to buy from the shop, he'll sign whatever it is. So there's no limit on that. So if you need a tire autograph of Richard Petty or a hat or a shirt or whatever,
I may have to look into that. That's very cool. That's cool. I did not know that.
But Ned Jarrett and Darryl Waltrip and Dale Jarrett, they're all great and sign.
Yeah, it's one thing I can say. The NASCAR older generation, the retired guys. Yeah, more than especially it's not just that. When you take some of the other sports, there are plenty of guys that'll sign, and probably more than NASCAR, just because there have been more baseball players, football players, basketball players. But it's that upper level of NASCAR guys. It's not just the guys that didn't win a race. It's the guys that are legends and in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And it's really hard to put into words. It's really awesome, and that's really not a suitable word.
So I want to jump in real quick. The question I wanted to ask, because Val, you've done this a lot more. I've done it with NASCAR, but it's very sporadic, and I know, Ken, you've probably done it more than I have with NASCAR, because I tend to do it with other sports. The one thing that you see with a lot of through-the-mail requests it's that debate of real, fake, did he or she sign it, or did the secretary sign it, did the sister, the girlfriend, whatever. I don't really ever hear that with NASCAR. And I don't know if you guys would agree with me or not, but I'm kind of wondering, do you think, say, 99% of all the NASCAR stuff is legitimate? I don't hear that debate brought up as much as I do with, say, like baseball, basketball, football.
Now, Ken, I don't know if you have anything on this.
I feel like a couple of maybe the more recent bigger names have maybe had questionable ones, but I'm also not going to say any names because I'm not sure, A, if the fact is right, and B, if I even have the right driver. So I don't want to besmirch anybody, but I agree that there's very little. I haven't really heard that much, maybe just a grumbling here and there.
The only one that I would say that I would question is Brad Keselowski because of the 2012 Auto Pen with Press Pass, 2012 Ignite. It ignited a firestorm. He auto-penned those for whatever reason, and Press Pass basically had to rectify the situation. It got him to sign regular versions, and you could trade those in for the legitimate version. And ever since then, or ever since that point, if I remember right, Brad did not sign any more Press Pass. And you'll notice in Panini, he only signs with sticker. You will not find an on-card Brad Keselowski in Panini. Now, he signs great at the track.
I've always found it interesting, there are guys, going over to baseball. There's some guys that won't sign certain cards and things like that. It fascinates me because we never hear the story. Now I'm interested in why Keselowski doesn't want to sign a card. He'll only sign the sticker. That's actually pretty fascinating. I would love to hear more about that.
And I don't know if it's the time constraint where he can sit down, knock out the stickers, and be done instead of a supply comes in. And I probably need to talk to the guys at Panini to see why that is. But if you search on Google, you can find the press release. I'll need to probably put all that, tie it all together, and put it on the blog. But I had no issues with him signing at the track, or he does Discount Tire. I think it's one of his sponsors, and he'll do stuff. Ken, like you were saying, when the race is in Charlotte, he'll be at, he'll be someplace, a Discount Tire or somewhere. It might be up by the track or whatever. But there's no problem with him signing cards there. I think, for whatever reason, he has trouble now. I've had hit and misses with Kyle Busch in person, but then if you pay for his fan club, they'll have that fan day. They'll invite you to come, and he'll sign, I think it's 2 things, and it's not an issue. Now, some of the big drivers will not sign through the mail just because they get inundated with stuff. So, like Jimmy Johnson probably won't sign, and I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. When Jeff Gordon was at Hendrick, he wouldn't sign. Tony Stewart wouldn't sign. I think Harvick won't sign either through the mail. I'll have to double check on that. But you basically, if you go to the middle tier to the rookies, they all sign through the mail.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I haven't. I think the only. Yeah, I don't. I had one get returned. I've never had anybody not sign or NASCAR wise that I sent to and didn't. The only signature I don't think I got was J.J. Yaley at one point, because I was trying to get him because of the Indy 500 connection. But that was where I think he was bouncing around teams, and so I sent it to, some address. I want to say he's from Ohio, if that sounds right. And I sent it to some address that I'd found there, and it just got a return to sender. But I think everything else I've ever sent out. But I'm also a very careful one. I try to research and make sure it's an address that people are getting successes from.
Yeah, I used Star Tiger before, I believe.
I'm too cheap. I haven't signed up for that. Maybe if I get back into this. No, it's a great
site.
I
think you can sign up for 30 days free, as well as if you go to, like I was saying, you go to the driver's website and look either there or at the team site, and they'll, under contact, there's usually a autograph request. Either they will take it or not. Like Chase Elliott, you probably don't want to send it to Hendrick, but I think if you send it to the shop in Dawsonville, Georgia, he'll sign there. I've done that. And sometimes if they run Xfinity, you can send it to the Xfinity team as opposed to the other team, if that makes sense. And
you told you may have just you may need some commission from Panini, because that's definitely some motivation to go out and buy a little bit if I can find it. No, and I did not know that you find those on the website. That's great information.
What is that? The addresses?
Yeah, I didn't know that they'd be for autograph requests. I never thought about that or did that. I don't know that they do that in IndyCar because, there really aren't any cards to get signed.
Right. Well, I mean, if you had somebody in particular, we could do a quick search here and tell you. But like when Chase was coming up, that's what I was doing. I was going to he was running for Dale Junior Motorsports, or if I think I was going after Ty Dillon to the other shop. So there are some ways you just kind of think about it, because they all sign. Even I think I had seen on Twitter where people were starting to get autographs from Dale Earnhardt Jr. They were 5 years old or more, but they were starting to, he'd gone through his mail and starting to sign. So, it's all, these guys could probably sit and sign for days if they didn't limit it. So,
yeah, I'm learning so much just from being on the show. I mean, I'm a listener, but I'm learning so much from our conversation.
Well, I try to like I've been doing this for the last 5-10 years. I really started getting into NASCAR, since we were getting the Hall of Fame here in Charlotte. Not that I didn't like it before, but just kind of honing in and then getting autographs through the mail, because I really enjoyed it. I had seen somebody on the PSA message board. They were working on a 52 set autograph baseball, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
but that was way out of Yeah, that was way out of my price range. So this was a while ago. This was probably in 2008 maybe. So it's been 12 years. But so I was going to take it to the other things. Well, I can get NASCAR cards. They're pretty cheap, and send them through the mail. If I get them back, great. If I don't get them back, not a big deal, right? It's different than sending $100 rookie card from one of the pick any baseball rookie, right? High prospect, and trying to send it to training camp, as opposed to, I was just a Denny Hamlin rookie, $5, or you probably get it for $1 or $2, and send it to Joe Gibbs, and he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. If it comes back, awesome. And if it doesn't come back, that's fine, right? You're at not much, but if it comes back, that's awesome. You got a autographed rookie of a future Hall of Famer. So,
yep, I will be. I'll have to be looking at this as whenever I finally get back to a Walmart or Target. We haven't really been doing that in the past few months.
And now is a great time if you picked up the Dunmer set. There's some rated rookies in there. Derek Krause is one I would be sending. Jesse Little, Haley Deegan is another. You thought we'd get through the show without mentioning her name, but I go after the rated rookies, or even if you go back earlier sets, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, or Cole Custer. These are Cup. They're going for Cup Rookie of the Years, those three, and John Hunter Nemechek as well. I know he signs through the mail, and you can get their rookies autographs. So, like I said, that's one thing great thing about collecting is there's not one way to do it.
I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of collectors, and there is not one collection that is not two collections that are exactly the same. So, yeah, there's, it just is what it is. I don't know what to say. There's no wrong as long as you're having fun with it.
Exactly. Well, I don't know if there's anything else, any other topics we miss any. I get rambling on. I apologize.
So do I. I like to hear myself talk, as I say in my YouTube videos. I'll think I'm going to do an 8-minute video, and it turns out to be 35 minutes just because I like to hear my own voice. No, I think the only thing we were going to talk about, I just wanted to say that, I really enjoyed the dual weekend of races this week. I'm an IndyCar guy. It was only IndyCar's second race of the season, but knowing what was going on, I wouldn't have watched the Xfinity race otherwise. But NBC just went straight from the IndyCar race into the Xfinity race, and to be honest, to me, that Xfinity racing, I love road racing. I've always loved road racing. Even back when I was in NASCAR, I was a huge NASCAR fan in the mid to late 90s. Two of my favorite races every year were Watkins Glen and, as it was called then, Sears Point. Just love those races. And yeah, but I think I know it's not really NASCAR's roots, but, maybe if, we can get more of these dual weekends, maybe you could see a little bit more, NASCAR racing like that. I know that, that would probably irritate a lot of the NASCAR fans, but part of kind of what chased me out was losing a lot of the short tracks when they decided that they were going to take races from, who was the one I was thinking of? Is it Rockingham that doesn't have a race anymore? Yeah. They used to have two races, I believe. They took one and give it to freaking California, and take one and give it to Las Vegas. These cookie-cutter tracks that are all the same, that they're all spread out, and, the North Wilkesboros and the Rockinghams and those, that's good fun racing, and that's kind of what you get with road racing, a little bit of beating and banging and, not a whole bunch of open air. And that Xfinity racing to me was the best racing of the weekend. I love IndyCar, but they can't beat like those Xfinity guys were in the last 7 laps. I was on the edge of my seat or on the edge of the couch, and I just kept, my wife's over on the computer just reading, and I'm like, hooting and hollering or whatever you want to say. I was all into that, and part of it was I'm an A.J. Allmendinger fan. But, would love to see the series, maybe work together because it could be good for both series. You would likely draw more fans because if it's a traditional NASCAR place, you might get some Indy fans and vice versa. The tracks, now they have more track activity, and maybe now they don't have to do two events a year. They can get away with one and make the same amount, if not more money. One of the challenges for IndyCar scheduling is an IndyCar fan that listens to a podcast is that there's a lot of race places they just can't race because of Cup, because it takes weeks to turn the track around. Well, if they're both racing there, that could help that. It seems like it would be good for the TV partners. NBC was just able to go straight from IndyCar straight into the Xfinity race. It was all on the same network. They don't have to send two different teams to, cameramen and stuff like that. They don't have to send them to two different tracks across the country. They can send one team in, one team of doing that. Yeah, you still got your announcing teams and stuff, but it seems like there's so much good. I'm sure there's some negative that some people won't like, but I feel like there's so much good, and it would also help IndyCar maybe get into some more ovals, which is something they want, because those are what they want more of and have trouble getting. Because NASCAR, and NASCAR pays the bills. I'm not, IndyCar fans are not fools. We understand that NASCAR is where the money is, but if now we could race at Kentucky or Richmond or wherever, because NASCAR, whether it be Xfinity or I'm not even sure what the top series is called. Refresh my memory. Camping? No, camping Oracle.
No, I just call it the Cup Series because they do not have a title sponsor. Monster, its contract was over.
That's probably why, because I remembered Monster, but I couldn't remember what it was. I thought I was having a brain fart. But it just seems like it could be so good for everyone. And for me, one thing that would be fun, we were talking about Joe Leonard. Wouldn't it be cool? Jimmy Johnson has already talked about wanting to run some IndyCar races. How cool would it be if you dual weekend and an IndyCar driver could go over and run an Xfinity car on a road course or something, and vice versa? What if some of these guys that end up in NASCAR that, did have their roots in the open wheel racing, the only one that could pop into my head, I know he's not got a ride, I understand all that, but like Kyle Larson or something like that could go over and run an IndyCar. I know there's been rumors about Kyle Busch wanting to run the 500. Well, maybe he could run somewhere else. Kyle hasn't. Kurt has run. A.J. Allmendinger had run when he was there. It's more like the good old days when, the Foyts and the Allisons and the Andrettis, they just ran wherever. They ran wherever. They ran where the money was. They ran the big races. And how much fun could that be for pretty much everyone involved?
Yeah. One of the issues I know here in Charlotte when they had IndyCar was the accident. But with no fans in the stands, that's not a problem anymore.
Yeah, there are definitely some tracks. Does Cup still run at Las Vegas?
They do.
I think Las Vegas would be a no-no for IndyCar. Maybe it's been long enough, but after 2011 with losing Dan Weldon there and the speeds and, they had talked about, a lot of the drivers had talked about being – so there's some tracks where it's not going to work. There's no doubt. Let's be honest, even Indy, although the Cup race I thought the Cup race was pretty exciting. In general, the Cup race there has been kind of boring, and then we had Tiregate for what was that, about 10 years ago. So, it's not going to work everywhere, and I'm not thinking they should be touring together all the time, but hell, if you could do that 5 or 6 times a year, it seems like it's a win for almost everyone involved. I'm sure somebody wouldn't be happy, but
yeah,
when you're talking perks and sponsors and all of these things that are bringing in the money, fans, it seems to be a winning formula.
Yeah, I missed that pre-race, but I did catch the Xfinity race, and to your point, it was really good those last laps where they were on every turn, trying to pass, and Justin Haley and Noah Graskin, they're all, and AJ Allmendinger are all leading, and then make a mistake in the corner, and then somebody else is leading. Those were awesome, and I definitely think there's some opportunities. Hopefully, somebody from NASCAR had seen that, or whatever, that some kind of cross pollination where NASCAR picks up some Indy fans and Indy picks up some NASCAR fans. So I think if they did that just to kind of change it up, I think some of it has gotten stale. They're talking about trying to run at Nashville, and they did the Roval in Charlotte, and that was a big success. And then doing this road course at Indy and be able to do both, that'd be cool. And then you talk about, they used to do the double where they do the Indy 500 and then fly to Charlotte for the Charlotte race. But if you had the same race at the same track, one earlier and then later in the afternoon, you can do the double right there.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I know that I know that NASCAR has gone from 43 to 40, but if you're doing that, is that something where maybe you could expand to 42? Because of those 40, I don't know the whole Cup, how many are locked in, those kind of things. I don't know if they do the lot. How many extra rides are there? But, in IndyCar, it's usually like 20 cars outside of the 500 and maybe get up to like 23. Well, if you can get 23 on a track, you can get 25 on a track if, whoever it is decided they wanted to come over. And again, that potentially is more eyes, especially as it's bigger names. If it was Nashville, if Joseph Newgarden, who is the reigning champion, I believe, I'm having a brain fart now, questioning myself, but if Joseph Newgarden was going to run, the Cup race, well, now IndyCar fans are going to be intrigued by that. And again, vice versa. If, I know you're a big Haley Deegan fan. What if she decided to run an IndyCar race? You would tune in, wouldn't you?
Definitely.
So, again, I think it's that whole, what is it, the rising tide, whatever that line is. But
yes. Uh-huh.
It seems to be that could be good. I know there are complications. I know, some people aren't going to like it. I know there are tracks. But I don't think racing has maybe passed a lot of its golden age. So it seems like a little bit of cooperation might be good for everyone involved.
Yeah, I think we were talking about changing it up a little bit. With Jimmy, when they went to the iRacing during that time, Jimmy Johnson was using the simulator he had that was for IndyCar. And so when he was doing it, he was basically sitting back like they would in the IndyCar. So it'd be really cool, interesting to see, if Jimmy Johnson goes to do some of the Indy and then, could do a double kind of a thing. There's definitely possibilities. So I'm hoping that they're at least entertaining that. There's been a lot of changes with NASCAR, and like you were saying earlier, I guess in the 90s, the tracks, the owners of the Rockingham, it was easier to buy the track and move the date than it was to try to get NASCAR to remove it from the track and move the date. So, they were moving Rockingham and some of that stuff and going to, Vegas and those other tracks that had those larger things, and they were trying to get that attendance back in the 90s. I think some of that now is contracting, and I've seen, like in Charlotte here, there were grandstands at turn 2, and those are all gone now. They've taken them out. And then I think at Daytona, I don't know if they pulled them out, but when I had gone to Daytona, you couldn't even buy seats for the July race on the back grandstand. So
it's like you said, it's contracting, and it's what every sports league is going through right now. Everybody is kind of losing attendance because, I tell you what, my sofa is really comfortable. The beverages are a lot cheaper. It's a lot cooler in here. So, the TVs are better than they ever have been. I mean, take your TV now versus your TV in 1995. So, what else, the times are changing for better or worse. They're changing. So how can these racing series evolve, and what can they do better to better do that? Because like you said, the tracks are not filling necessarily like they were, and that's, from what I understand, both series. And that's, like you said, that's why they took them out of the North Wilkesboros and the Rockinghams and stuff like that, was, well, let's move them to California. But the racing at those other tracks was just, that was fun racing. I don't find the 1.5 to 2.5 mile tracks that fun, outside of a handful of events.
Yeah, it's funny as they're talking about bringing some of that stuff back. So,
that would be the hope. Bristol's not even what it was, when I was watching in the late 90s with the, the reconfigurations. I don't find it quite as exciting, but it's a lot more exciting than watching the, the same old stale 1.5 mile cookie cutter track.
Yeah, before you couldn't get a ticket to Bristol, and then before all this happened, there were seats. But I don't know if you had heard, but NASCAR, or I guess it's the ISM, the parent or the parallel to NASCAR, that they owned a bunch of the tracks, and then the Bruton Smith's group owned tracks, and those were publicly traded companies. Now they've both gone to private, and so now they have to deal with shareholders, but they can now move the dates around or lose dates and not have to deal with shareholders. And I guess where I'm going with this is that, they're talking about like doing stuff midweek now. These Wednesday races have been a big hit, and just kind of changing it up, and it gives them freedom to make some of these changes. Because like Homestead used to be the last race of the year, but this year it is Phoenix. So that's new. And then, the July 4th race was usually always at Daytona, and, they moved it to Indy. So given to NASCAR, they are trying to inject some new blood into it and make some changes, bring some new fans in, or re-energize the sport.
And this, it seems like a great time to test if you are having some success with the midweek races. What if you were able to, say, move, what's the schedule, about 36 races? Does that sound about right?
Give me 1 second, I'll tell you.
But it's in that 30 to 35, let's just say. What if you were able to do this, say, next year when everything is quote-unquote normal again? What if you were able to start doing 5, 6 midweek races a year? NASCAR has almost no off-season. These guys don't have downtime. What if you could shorten that season by a month? Give these guys a little more time off. And then, of course, you're going again, as we've talked, it's ratings and everything probably aren't as strong as they were, 20, 15 years ago. Well, what if you end it earlier so you're not going against football? Because that's something that in the last handful of years, IndyCar has tried to do, is let's try to get our season over. And I'm not saying NASCAR could do this, but let's try to get our season over before football starts. Because we know we're not football. We know what we are, and we have our fan base, but we ain't going to compete with college or NFL football.
Yeah, and I think
give these guys more time off.
NASCAR starts in middle of February with Daytona. It ends in November with Phoenix or Homestead, and there are 36 races this year. But to your point, that season is long, and you have that fatigue. And I see it in baseball and all the other sports when you're running from April to October, and then you have the playoffs, and it's just a grind.
And it's not just drivers; it's crew members. It's the guys at the. I know that the crew members are still going to have to, they work year round, but hey, maybe they can get an extra week off out of this 4 weeks or something like that. Because, man, I don't envy what these guys do. I'm sure that most of them love it, but, man, it's got to be hard to, to have a life and family and be on the road as much as these guys are on the road. Man, we are really getting off topic now.
Yeah, it definitely takes a special person to, because those guys are training all the time, and then the traveling as well, and it's definitely a grind. So, but well, I know we've gone a little bit off topic. Yeah, it was good to see the duel, and hopefully they'll do some more of that. And hopefully we'll see some of these smaller tracks, and we'll see what's in store for the future. But, all those guys in the Xfinity race that we were watching, the Chase Briscoe and Justin Haley and Noah Graskin and A.J. Allmendinger and all those guys, they have cards and Dunruss and other stuff, and I know they all signed through the mail. So there's some opportunities to get some autographs. So.
And like I said, I'm excited to maybe I know we were talking about unopened boxes earlier, and I've been looking on eBay over the last couple of weeks for like some old 90s boxes. That stuff is dried up too, but I'd love to be able to go back, open some of that, and send some of those. Because again, just it is what it is. I'm not necessarily into the current product, but man, if things could change, if you could get back a little more to your roots in those short tracks, you're probably gonna get me back. It's not too hard to get me back because I do love racing, at its purest form. But thinking about those guys from the 90s and being able to send those autographs out, those guys that I was watching when I was, in my mid-teens to my early 20s, that could be really fun. I've looked for some boxes, but they're definitely the ones I like are a little bit pricey, unfortunately.
You bring up a great point. You could grab some of the earlier sets and work on just getting them autographed. There's a couple of projects that I've been working on or worked on. Now, I cheated some. I got an 88 Max set, pretty much almost all autographed. And I didn't just, jump into it. I asked the seller some questions, and this was a long time ago, but asked him some questions, and everything kind of checked out. It turns out he was from Alabama, and his brother worked for one of the building chassis for the cars, and him and his cousin brother had gone to the track and gotten basically the set autographed, and all the autographs look good. Now, some of them weren't autographed, and so I picked up the project and was finished it. But I guess where I'm going is, you can buy some of these factory sets and send them off, because I had gotten a couple of factory sets, and you can send them off and get them signed to Richard Childress and Mark Martin. And, if you go after the 88 Max, Dale Jarrett and Rusty Wallace, all these guys, their first cards to get them signed, or the 1990 or the 91 Max, or, you can buy, like I said, the factory sets. They're probably less than $20 shipped, and possibly even cheaper, and it gives you a fun project to find contact information or addresses to send to the mail, and you don't have to spend $500 for a brand new Sapphire box for a bunch of rookies to enjoy it. So there's different levels to enjoyment, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, and again, for me, not really being into the new and not necessarily being into the shiniest, I will say that since I've joined the Nuts group on Facebook, thank you for the invite to that, Val. I truly appreciate that. I've had some fun over the last few weeks and been drooling over, what the NASCAR collectors have available to them, and wishing I had it for IndyCar. But yeah, Panini I think does a pretty solid job. But I'm not, when I was into it was the 90s, and we didn't have as much of that flashy stuff. So that's what I like, and it still keeps me involved as far as a hobby, and maybe that helps renew my interest in the modern racing a little bit more, as hopefully we see some other changes. But yeah, and you were saying 91 Max. I will say that's something that's not really hard to find on eBay. That seems to be the most junk wax NASCAR product ever.
When you're saying that, I remember one of the local card shops. I knew him pretty well, and I remember him saying that you could buy cases of 91 Max, and I think Max would give you terms too to buy it on credit, and they had made so much of it. So I think there is a ton of it, and there's, I think, 2 or 3 printings of it. So it's a sharp card.
Yeah, they're good, but unfortunately for me, the Dale Earnhardts in there aren't necessarily the most appealing looking cards, so it kind of doesn't really give me the motivation to pick those up, since his aren't necessarily the best looking cards.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some of the good ones and nice looking ones, but yeah, there's Opinion does a great job with the new stuff. So
88, it's got the white borders. I mean, that's a sharp, that's a good, clean looking set. I wish I could find those for the same prices as the 91 Max, but oh well, what are you going to do?
Well, you can, boxes aren't that bad. If you, there's 44 packs to a box, or if you go after a factory set, probably get, or not even a factory set, an open set, or find one that's in a binder for, $30 or whatever. Because it'll probably don't have to be, gem mint. You're not going to send them off in grade. You're going to send them off to get autographed. And I had done, like I said, I had done that and sent them off to, the Greg Sacks and Derek Cope, and it's a Hud Strickland. Yeah, actually, I think Strickland was tough.
That's Strickland's first mention on the show, isn't it?
It might be, and actually, he was tough to get. I think he was here for Stocks for Tots or something. I finally got him. He was a tough one, and actually, the one that's really tough is Trevor Boyes.
That name doesn't even ring a bell.
Yeah, he's in Canada, and it took me a while to find his address, and his wife was nice enough to give me, I think it was on Facebook, and they were traveling, but they weren't coming this far south racing. So, but I think almost say he was in Alberta, but this was years ago. But he was one of the ones to chase. And quickly talking about ones to chase, I also was working on a 1990. That's the one that's black bordered front, yellow back. It was another one of these that I had gotten a project from somebody, but it was Tony Spanos, and he was in Australia. So it took me a couple of tries to get his autograph, but I was able to achieve it. So
those are definitely a couple that I'm not even sure of, because I probably didn't start. I would have started following NASCAR in '95. The reason being, we had 2 radio stations that I listened to growing up, and they were, like top 40 music. Well, there were 2 songs out at the same time, and you'll probably get a kick out of this. There was "Killing Me Softly" by the Fugees and the Macarena, and I could not stand either one of those songs. So when the station would play one, I would flip to the other station, and then when it would play one of the 2, I'd flip back. Well, one day I turned over, and one of my stations was country music, and I was like, well, I'm not going to hear it here. I started listening to country music, and they played the NASCAR races every week. They were part of MRN. So I started listening to MRN and Barney Hall, and, really got into NASCAR for about a decade there.
Wow. Awesome.
Stupid little things, man. They can change your life.
Yeah. I was going to say, first time I went to a race, one of the guys here that I worked with, I get an extra ticket for the All-Star race. And that was actually the perfect race for me because it's short, and it was at dusk, so it's not in the middle of the day. I think it was in the mid-90s, and went to the race, and I was like, oh, this was, it was pretty cool, So
that was the Busch Clash, right?
Yeah, or Winston Select. It was the year that Earnhardt had the silver car. Okay. Everybody was losing their mind.
I couldn't remember what the Busch Clash was there, or if that was the Daytona races or something. I couldn't.
I think that was Daytona. I think this was the Winston Select.
That sounds right. That sounds right now that you say it.
And talking about like the ultimate chase, Dale Earnhardt Sr. was running the silver car, Silver 3, and everybody was losing their mind trying to buy the die-cast, or what was the die-cast at that time. It was more plastic of that in the merchandise trailer. So
that's the old Racing Champions brand?
Maybe, I believe so. I wasn't, it was too new for me. So I wasn't.
Remember correctly.
Yeah, but I do remember, we talk about the chase now and everybody chasing this and chasing that. I mean, people have been chasing stuff since the beginning with collectibles. So.
Absolutely.
So. Well, Ken, I appreciate you joining the show. What was that, sir?
I was just saying we're about 90 minutes in. You wanna wrap it up?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think Jason had to go, so but we both appreciate you being on the show.
Poor Jason, he probably feels left out, but luckily he and I have been for a long, long time. We actually did you know that he and I grew up like 30 minutes from each other, and like we know each other well in person?
No.
Oh yeah. We grew up, and we worked for the same company for a long time. But we know each other well. He came out and did a card show with me when I lived in Indianapolis.
That's pretty cool. Actually, Jason, he lived a couple of towns over for a short time. I never knew
him at that time, but we were talking about Charlotte in the Charlotte area. So. That's interesting that he gets around.
He does. Well, I get around too. Let's be honest. I've lived in 5 states now, and I've lived in 4 of them in my adult life. So, but I'm home now. I'm staying in Texas.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. So, but I appreciate you joining the show, and I appreciate you listening, and racing, NASCAR, Indy, there's a lot of similarities, with collecting, other than that you guys don't have the annual sets coming out. But maybe that'll change. I don't know. It'd be nice if Panini would do a subset or something.
Yeah, like something where even, like I said, maybe I know it's hard because I actually worked kind of within IndyCar for a couple of years. I worked for the company that was the official retailer for 2 years. So you definitely learn a lot about how, contract, there's just so much behind the scenes in racing that makes things more complicated than they are in the stick and ball sports with, unions and stuff, and the race being contract. There is a lot of things that are different. So it's not as easy. So I don't envy Panini having to deal with all that nonsense. But, if they could figure out a way to do just a racing or, something where they could maybe start getting in those guys and drag guys, even if it's only certain drivers. It doesn't have to be everybody. If it's a kind of a mishmash of guys, some will want to be in, some won't. Some IndyCar teams are super tough to deal with. I won't mention any names, Andretti. So some people just aren't as easy to get along with. So, but that would be awesome if they could do that. Like Press Pass was able to at least get those Ganassi and Penske drivers in.
Yeah, that definitely. At least we talk about the cross pollination. That would definitely help as well. So,
I would think so. Or you get the guys that are all NASCAR or all IndyCar. Well, hey, trade opportunities, sale opportunities. Get a little bit of money back from your box or, whatever the case may be. There's a taker for everything. I wouldn't anticipate it'd be like a 50-50 split of IndyCar and NASCAR because NASCAR is where the money is. But, if you could get like 15% of your sets from IndyCar drivers, I would still buy the product, even knowing that it's only 15% of it that's IndyCar.
Yeah, I mean, as a set guy, I'm more of a set guy than a driver guy. I would be selecting that because it's in the set, and then possibly also look at getting some of them autographed as well. So,
if you I know that there's at least been some rumor about them maybe trying to go back to Charlotte. Well, if they did, I mean, they're very accessible, and like I said, they usually do at least from what I know at most tracks, they do like at least an hour autograph signing. Sometimes you can't get everybody in an hour. Sometimes they split them into two groups, and you have to pick which group. But still, it's an opportunity. They did that here, and I had my wife go through one line, and I went through a different line. So we were able to get almost everybody. But, yeah, that would be.
That's the one thing about getting autographs. I always feel like, okay, I'm not entitled, to get an autograph or get an autograph from everybody when you have something like that situation. I always go and say, I hope to get one, but, it's not the end of the world if I don't. Like when they have that, where they split into two, that, that's awesome, where at least you're getting some. And because of the time constraints, the first time you come up to an autograph signing, there's a lot of logistics to it, and they're probably under time constraints and how many people they can get through. And when some of the ones that I've been to, that say, okay, no pictures, and limit you to one item so that they can try to get everybody through and get an autograph. So.
Yeah, and I mean IndyCar, at least in my experience, has done a good job of, they try to fit all the Penske drivers together, because there's a lot of team fans, I don't know. I don't feel it may necessarily, from what I know, be as strong as in NASCAR, but, a lot of people are just Andretti Autosport fans because of the Andretti name. They're Penske fans, they're Ganassi fans, so they tend to, put those drivers together. So it kind of helps you determine which line you might want to be in. They will always, tell you this line is going to be these drivers and this line will be these drivers. Pick a winner.
Yeah, it's awesome that they do that.
Fun. I would love to come back on. We could talk about. We didn't even talk about who I used to collect when I collected. I was a driver. I was as close to a super collector as could be. It was pre-eBay, so it wasn't as easy to find stuff all the time, especially living in West Virginia. But who I collected then. I collect one particular driver's autographs now, and we talked about the T36. We briefly mentioned the T36 set, so I'd love to come back on and chat more if you'd like to have me back.
Oh, yeah. Love to. Yeah, we get talking here and get off course. But, yeah, I have not purchased any of the T36s, but they intrigue me. And, there's some different backs and stuff. And I've listened. You've been on a couple of the shows talking about the T36, as well as the Perkhurst, I think. And I can't remember. I think there's another one.
There's a 1950
but I'm always
Stark and Wetzel, and then there are from the 60s, early 60s, there are some different Marhofer meats, and that was a local meat deli in Indianapolis, and there are some of those too. But yeah, we could sit down and talk about all these different things, and I would love to talk about it.
Yeah, we'd love like I said, we'll have to make that happen. Love to have you on the show and talk about that. That way we can share some of that knowledge, and if somebody is interested in that, they can listen to that show and get some education on it so that they can make informed decisions. So that's what I try to do. So hopefully we've done that today with some of the information about TTM and in person, as well as some of the other things we mentioned. So, but Kim, where can everybody find you?
You probably find me most active on Twitter. I took a little bit of a hiatus from my hobby account, but I feel like I'm back pretty strong. So if you're on Twitter, Beans Bcard Blog. I do love to talk cards. So if you want to interact, like I said, give me follows. Tweet at me and. We'll definitely talk. You and I, we shoot some messages and some tweets back and forth. The other thing is I do have a YouTube channel, and that's Beans Ballcard Blog. That's the name of my website as well, beansballcardblog.com. On Twitter, it's just Beans Bcard Blog because they didn't give me enough characters to get it all in there. So, but yeah, that's where you can find me, and I do kind of a wide range of things and topics, and it's not just racing. It's, pretty much all the sports. I grew up following up pretty much all the sports, and it's still in me.
Well, I know you're an asset to the hobby with sharing your knowledge, and it's awesome to see. Like I said, I try to keep Twitter to some positives and sharing information. It's a lot more fun that way, I think. So.
Absolutely. But yeah, check out my YouTube channel as well if you're into that. I mentioned that there is a former driver that I am collecting some autographs of, and I actually have a video that I'll need to make here in the next handful of days that I'll be able to show off too. I don't even know that I told you about the last one, Val, but I have another one coming. Dun, dun, dun.
Awesome, yes. Some beauties. And I don't think people realize how affordable some of those driver legend autographs are, especially when you compare it to other sports as well. And then, of course, we talked about through the mail with some nobody charges for them. So it's amazing when I see the prices for, like, Tom Brady, $800 for an autograph. That's for in-person. That floors me. But, yes, you have some beautiful autographs. So a little teaser there to check out Ken's YouTube channel when that'll pop.
Probably have to do it. I got one. It's scheduled to be here Saturday, so maybe I'll get to it Sunday. But yeah, sometime here probably in the next week I'll have a video on that. But like I said, I do videos on different things because I have a very wide collecting. I wish I could be more focused, Al. I wish I could be like you and kind of just stick to one general thing. But unfortunately, I've been going for 33 years since I was 7 years old, and there's too much out there.
Ken, I want to tell you that is one of the hardest things to do, even in NASCAR. Like sometimes I get pulled maybe to driver suits or crew chief suits or die casts or cups or whatever. There is a ton to collect, and that's just in NASCAR and then other stuff. So staying focused, and again, it's to be enjoyed. So you focus on whatever makes you happy, but it's the journey, right? So, but
absolutely,
that's cool. So so I think if they go out into Twitter and follow you there, they'll find out when the video shows up. So,
absolutely, I'll share it on there, and I share a lot of others' YouTube videos when they get them posted. So, I'm always sharing, new things. If that's something you're into, feel free to give me a follow, and you'll definitely see some good channels and some good videos as I share those.
So, from Jason and myself, thank you so much for being on the show. And next time we'll have you on, and we'll let Jason do some talking.
Yeah, poor guy. He probably felt left out. He's probably going to be sending us both a text.
Yeah.
All right, Val.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day.